Huh? No, no, I don't even follow her. Do you know what? Like the reason why I would see her pop up, because she'd always ask me in it, like, oh, like for hair, nails, this, that, whatever, like who's good to go to in it. So I would tell her like these are the people.
Hey everybody, I'm just trying to get my screen to work. Excuse me a second. Sorry, I can't find the setting which lets you like modify what your screen looks like when you come onto Zoom, and I keep coming on and it's not what I want, and I spend the first 3 minutes faffing around. Sorry about that. Good evening and welcome everybody. Thank you for joining me this evening. I'm just going to pull up my chat box and a couple other bits so I can see what's going on. Excellent. So thank you so much for joining me this evening. My name is Eleanor, and my aim is to get lots covered in the next 60 minutes. We haven't got a huge amount of time and an awful lot to cover, so let's get cracking. By the end of this session, I feel confident that you will feel more empowered to make informed choices and decisions, that you're going to feel confident that you understand the ABCs of labour, what there is to learn. You are also going to feel a bit more that you've got a bit more experience in how learning about stuff can help you feel differently about birth. And we're going to finish up the session today with a Q&A about anything we've covered tonight or anything that's going on for you in your pregnancy. And so if questions pop into your head, pop them in the chat and I'll come back to them at the end. So my aim in this session is to give you everything you need to feel 100% confident and completely ready for birth. So to start off with, I want to ask, on a scale of 1 to 10, how ready do you feel for birth right now? So have a think about that and let me know what you think. Drop it in the chat. What's your scale from 1 to 10? I'm interested, how ready do you feel? So 1 is feeling like not at all ready. Oh my goodness. You can go into 0 if you like, minus numbers. 10 is feeling 100% there. Let's see how you feel. And this question is for mums, it's for birth partners, whoever's there. Hi, how are you feeling about it from your perspective? So I've got a few coming through now. Teresa's saying maybe 6, Anna's saying 4, Stacey 4, Emma 7, 5. So we've got a bit of a mixture, but kind of around the middle of the ground. Some kind of 4s, I'd say. 3 is kind of feeling a bit like, you know what, I really don't really feel like I'm there. And yeah, Jay and Jai say 5, Noelle is saying 3, G Thurborn saying 3, I'm just going to put you G to make it easier. EB says 6, so quite a mixture. I don't think we've had anything above 6 yet, have we? So we've had a 7 from Emma. And what else? Amy said 4. Mark said 5. So I can see that we've kind of definitely got some place to go with this. So that's great. Let's get cracking and see if we can move ourselves a few points up that scale. So I want to just introduce myself and tell you who I am and why I'm here today. My name is Eleanor and my business is called BirthZang. I'm an independent antenatal teacher and I run live 4-week antenatal courses called Get Ready for Birth. And I'm also in the process of building a kind of a pre-recorded, self-guided version of that course because a lot of people can't do the timings of the sessions or don't want to have to turn up once a week, whatever. So I'm kind of doing a really amazing, flexible version of that. And I'm sitting here in front of you today because of my own experiences. Now, I've got 2 children, Gaius, who is coming up to 11, oh my goodness, and Beatrix, who is 8.5. And I had 2 very different birth experiences. In fact, if I had to choose one word to describe each of those births, I think the first would be traumatic, unfortunately. and the second would be awesome. Now, a lot of people flinch when I use the word awesome and birth in the same sentence. I totally get it, but actually it was an incredible experience. So what was the difference between these two experiences? What was the difference between that traumatic birth and the awesome one? Well, in my first pregnancy, I had done some antenatal classes, and I felt really positive. But I discovered that that positivity was quite empty. When I came to my labour, and it lasted a very long time, and it was quite difficult. And to be honest, I realised that I didn't actually have any tools to cope, and I had no idea how birth worked. And all of that positivity I had just completely collapsed, really. It was empty. Whereas the second time round, in my second pregnancy, I also felt really confident. But this time round, I had done loads of different kind of preparation. I'd done an active birth class, I'd read loads of books, I went to pregnancy yoga, I did loads of reading and research around the things that I had happened to me the first time around. And this time when I went into labour, I was really, really informed. I knew exactly what was going to happen in my body during labour. I had a huge range of tools to cope. And actually, I ended up having a completely incredible life-affirming experience. And actually, after that birth, I gave up my job and became an antenatal teacher, because I realised how different it is when you know what's going on, and that you actually are properly educated towards your birth, and how it can make all the difference. And so that's why I do what I do, and I want to help as many people as possible have an awesome birth rather than a traumatic one. So that's kind of like my mission in life. I trained with Janet Velasquez as an active birth teacher back in 2013, but I'm also qualified in yoga. I'm an NLP practitioner. I've done lots of additional courses on anatomy and physiology, which is, I'm really crazy on anatomy and physiology, but also things like baby loss, miscarriage, and rebozo, baby positioning, and trauma resolution. So I've got quite a wide range of experience, and I've used all of these qualifications and skills and experience to craft a completely unique antenatal program that gives you everything you need to feel 100% confident and completely ready for birth. And I feel confident that I am doing a great job, because I do get great feedback from people who come to both this free taste class and my other longer classes. Recently, Jessica said to me, these classes have been fantastic, very engaging and informative, answering questions we didn't even know we had, which gives you a bit of an inkling as to what is going to be coming. So I want to cover broadly 3 things in this session. I want to talk about 3 key mistakes that parents-to-be make when preparing for birth. I'm going to go through each one and explore it a little bit and see how we can avoid making those mistakes. And then we're going to have a Q&A at the end. So we will have time for discussion at the end, although I'll try to answer questions as they pop up if they seem kind of relevant. So please feel free to use the chat. That's what it's there for. So the first mistake that parents to be often make is that you don't actually know what the choices are available to you, and you don't really know how to make informed decisions in labour and birth. And this is a really, really problematic area. And the thing is, what's really interesting to understand is that you always have a choice. Every appointment, every scan, every blood test, every time somebody touches you in a medical setting is always your choice. Now, I'm talking about the UK here because this is where I am. I do know that some people come to these classes who are not in the UK. So if you're not in the UK, hi, welcome. I don't know what the legal situation is in your country, so it may vary from that slightly. But in the UK, the only thing you are legally required to do in terms of pregnancy and labour and birth is to register your baby with the registry office after it's been born. But the thing is, it's all very well saying, well, you know, everything's a choice, but if you don't know what those choices are that are being presented to you, they're not really choices. And in order to do this, I'd really like to use a kind of a non-birth related example. And I want to ask if there's anybody in the group tonight who would be happy to just unmute themselves and just come and have a little chat with me. I'm going to ask you a daft question just to help me give an example of what I'm talking about. So is there anybody, if there's anybody who'd be happy to just have a chat, it's very straightforward, it won't take more than a couple of moments, drop it in the chat and let me know. I can see a couple of people have said they're from Ireland and Spain. Yay, hi. Someone else is saying they difficulty hearing. I'll make a note. Hopefully, if you can't hear me, there's not much I can do. But hopefully they'll email me and I'll send them a replay. Is there anybody who would like to come and have a chat with me? Please comment. It's so much more interesting than me talking to myself. If you don't want to, that's fine. It would be really, really nice. Okay, Amy, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Would you like to just unmute yourself, Amy, and then we can just have a little chat. If you start saying hello, we should see. Hey there.
Hi.
So I'm just going to try and change the view so I can see you. Here we go. So hi, Amy, how are you doing?
I am good, how are you?
Yeah, really good, thank you, this evening. It was raining a minute ago, but now it's not, and I'm in a conservatory, so like I'm really aware when it's raining. And everyone says, oh no, we can't hear it, and I'm just like, shh, but it's gone now, so feeling calm and happy. Thank you so much for volunteering, Amy. So what I want to do is to ask you a silly question, and don't overthink it. And this is hypothetical, okay? I'm not actually going to turn up at your house in a moment. Amy, I can see that you're hungry. Would you like an argy-bargy?
I don't know what that is.
So Amy, let me ask you this. I can see that you're hungry. Would you like some chocolate cake?
Yes, please.
Okay. So when I asked you about the chocolate cake, you had an idea of chocolate and an idea of cake, and you probably had each of those, and you've had probably chocolate cake many times in your life, and some of the chocolate cake has been good, some of it not so much, and overall you know that basically if you choose the chocolate cake, you're gonna like it, right? Because it's chocolate cake, who wouldn't? And the thing is, that whole decision-making process happened like that in your brain. Like you went through absolutely all of that kind of memories and all of the ways that it tasted and all of those things, and it kind of went through your brain in a moment, and you were able to make a decision immediately. But when I asked you if you wanted an argy-bargy, you don't know. You don't know what it is. How can you possibly make a choice? Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a really great tool for helping you to turn a choice into an informed choice. And what I'm going to do, Amy, is I'm just going to mute you for now, and then I'm going to come back to you in just a moment after we've had a look at this model, and I'm going to ask you that question again and see if your decision-making process is any different, okay? So we'll be back in a moment. Great, thumbs up, because you're already muted. Awesome. So the first way that we can sidestep this mistake is and start feeling 100% confident and completely ready for birth is to ensure that every choice that we make is an informed choice. And to do that, we need to use our brains. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you a slide because I want to show you what this model is and what it looks like. And I think some people find it easier to process things when they read them. And I'm going to send this to you after this session. So you don't need to write it down. You'll have it if you want to print it out or refer to it. So that'll be in your inbox in a while. So bear with me one moment while I just share my screen with you. Okie dokie. So using your brain. So BRAIN is actually an acronym, and it's not something I've invented. It's something that's been around for about 70 years, maybe 60. And it's a really useful decision-making tool, and we can use it brilliantly to help us make informed choices in pregnancy and birth. So we're going to just go through that now. So B stands for benefits. what are the benefits to this choice? And this is all about what's the reason why we're choosing something. I mean, it's pretty clear place that we want to begin. And if you don't understand why you're making a choice and what good is going to come out of it, then you definitely are in the zone of not making an informed choice. So what I want to do is to put a bit of context around this, because I think it helps to kind of understand this in relation to a real life example. This time we're not going to use a silly example. We're going to use a real life pregnancy and birth example. So I want to use the context of having an induction of labour for going past your due date. Now, in the UK, around 30% of births, actually it's 33, are induced in some way. And not all of that is for going over your due date, but quite a lot are. And so the chances are that probably at least a quarter or a third of you will have a conversation about this. So I think it's really relevant. So let's apply the benefit. So what is the benefit of having an induction of labour when you've gone past your due date? Well, it is that the induction will artificially start and manage your labour when it hasn't started already. So that's what the benefit is to having an induction of labour. So let's move on to R. R stands for risks. What are the risks to this choice? What are the risks to this course of action? And again, the benefits and the risks are kind of fairly, obvious pros and cons of any decision-making process, right? But the risks is an interesting one, because often in pregnancy and labour and birth, we are told about the risk of something, which is why we want to make a decision to do something, but we're not always told about the risks of doing that thing. So it's really important to get that balanced view. And risks are about things that are directly associated with that choice. So for example, in the case of an induction of labour, the risks are that you're induced through the administration of a drug, and that drug has effects on the mother and on the baby. And some of those effects we want, i.e. stimulating contractions, but some of the effect we may not want, or there may be more of it than we were hoping for. So there is a risk, a direct risk associated with the drug used for an induction. So benefits, risks, nothing completely groundbreaking. Let's move on to A, which stands for alternatives. And this is where the questions start getting a little bit more insightful. So what are the alternatives to this choice? And this is a really useful question that helps us to start to step out of the decision and start to get a bit of a bigger picture going on here. And the alternatives are, again, like often in labour and birth, we are not presented with a menu of choices. They don't say, well, we think we could do X, Y, Z or A, B, C. It doesn't really work like that. What tends to happen is that we're guided towards a particular course of action, which our medical team have decided that would be the best course of action for us. And in some cases, in many cases, there are more than one thing that could be offered, but they're kind of guiding you into one thing. So when we say, is there any alternative to this choice? It really just helps us to widen the picture and understand what else there is. And maybe there's nothing, but it's good to know. Or maybe there's 5 other things you could do, and actually you would much prefer to do one of those other ones. So it's really about looking at the choice in context of the other choices available to you. So in case of an induction of labour for going past your due date, an alternative to having an induction is to do what we would call expectant management. And this is where you would go to the hospital every day after the date agreed, and you would have monitoring to make sure that you were in tip-top condition and to make sure your baby was in tip-top conditioning. And this is actually a really very valid alternative to an induction of labour, but it's very rarely offered to people. So it's always useful to just ask that question. Then we come to I, which stands for implications. And for me, this is one of the most important questions that we can ask. Now, implications is slightly different from risks. Risks is talking about the things that are directly associated or linked to that thing. So in the case of induction, it was a drug. The implications, again, is just looking at a bit of a broader picture. It's looking at what that means in the context of in an hour or in a week or something. What's going to happen further down the line, or might be more likely as a consequence of making this choice. So let's put this into context with the example of the induction of labour. The implication is that when you have an induction of labour, the drugs that are administered make your labour come on quite quickly and quite intensively. And so many people report that it's more painful to have an induction than normal. And so that the implications are that you may find you are more likely to want to choose a pain relief choice at an earlier point in your labour, or maybe you wouldn't have chosen it at all. And that pain relief choice may also have an effect on you and your baby. So it's just about understanding, if I do this, does it mean I'm twice as likely to then choose that? And again, it's about what might happen later on. So again, a really important question there. Finally, we come to N, which stands for nothing. What if I do nothing? What if I wait an hour, a day, a week? And this, again, is a really useful question to surface the urgency around which you're asking a question. It's about understanding whether or not I need to make this choice right now, or whether or not it's just something I need to take into consideration. It also can give us insight as to whether this choice is about scheduling or whether it's about our personal individual care and a decision for our specific situation. So in the example that we've been looking at for an induction of labour, if I do nothing, what happens is that we go into a bit of a crossover with the alternative, with expectant management, because that's kind of doing nothing. That's just kind of waiting for labour to happen spontaneously. And it's interesting with an induction because often we find we are guided to come on a particular day. We won't let you go over this particular date. You have to come in for an induction on this day. And so you turn up and they say, thank you for coming in, but actually we're very busy. Could you come back tomorrow? And you think, well, actually that wasn't really so urgent. And waiting was probably quite a valid choice. And it's very much about scheduling and not about my particular situation. So benefits, risks, alternatives, implications, nothing. The BRAIN acronym is a really powerful tool for helping you to surface more information about something, to help you turn a choice into an informed choice. And in fact, we can use our brain in labour and birth, but we can also use our brain to research and create birth preferences. It's a really useful way to be able to compare different choices. So for example, you might look at the 5 pain relief choices that are available in labour and birth, and you also might look at the 13 interventions that can happen in labour and birth and immediately afterwards, and use the BRAIN acronym to make sure you understand what all of those things are, and the benefits, risks, alternatives, implications, and nothing of each of those. And I love this acronym so much that in fact I have actually written a book that uses the BRAIN acronym as the core structure of every single chapter, because I believe it's such a powerful tool. And I've written this book, Helping Birth, Your Guide to Pain Relief Choices and Interventions in Labour or Childbirth with Real Stories, which is a lovely catchy title, I'm sure you'll agree, but does what it says on the tin. in, and it basically covers all of those 5 pain relief choices and 13 interventions using that framework, so you can understand what's going on. And there's a lot more information in there as well about what to expect and when you might use an intervention, and of course birth stories as well, because I think it's always useful to put things into context. So that's available on Amazon if you feel that's of interest. I will send you the link to the book at the end of the session. So let's come back now, and let's come back to Amy, and let's apply this model to our argy-bargy and see if it changes the decision that you've made. Well, actually, you didn't really make a decision because you're like, I don't know if I want it. So let's see what's different. So I'm just going to ask you to unmute there, Amy. So in your own time, do that. So what I'm going to do is just talk through the benefits, the risks, the alternatives, implications, nothing of the argy-bargy. So, Amy, the benefit of having an argy-bargy is that it stops you feeling hungry, it tastes like curry, and it leaves you feeling happy inside. Aww. The risks, however, Amy, of the argy-bargy are that it contains nuts, and in 10% of cases can give you a headache. The implications, the alternatives, I've jumped ahead there. The alternatives to the argy-bargy are chocolate cake, chicken and rice, or an ujima flip. The implications of having an argy-bargy is that dinner is in an hour, and so you probably won't feel hungry for dinner, and it's your favourite meal. And if you do nothing, you'll still be hungry, but then dinner is soon, and so the feeling will ultimately pass. So given this new set of information, Amy, would you like an argy-bargy?
No, thank you. I'll do nothing and wait for dinner.
Okay, great. And how was your decision-making process different there?
Well, I knew more about what an argy-bargy was, so I was able to think about what the best choice would be for me, rather than just saying yes or no without knowing fully what it is or what the risks and implications are.
Fantastic. And it's amazing how just that little bit of extra knowledge can completely change the way you make the decision. And you may have noticed as well, I threw in a wild card there. I threw in an ujima flip there. I made that up, and I made up the argy-bargy as well. They're not real foods. They should be though, right? And actually, what tends to happen when you start using the brain acronym to do research is that you find something, you think, I don't really know what this is, and you start to kind of look at the benefits, risks, alternatives, implications, nothing. And then you find something else crops up and you think, I don't really know what that is either. I don't quite understand that word or that phrase or what that thing is. And so, you can jot it down and then come back to that. And then you can apply the brain to that. And then that will then lead you on this kind of like organic path of learning based on the things that you don't really understand, and all the things that you know about you can kind of you skip over, but it just means that you kind of fill the gaps in your knowledge, and you kind of have a personalized pathway of how to kind of progress your knowledge and just learn more stuff completely relevant to you. So I think it's a really excellent tool, and I think it can be really useful. And thank you very much, Amy, for being a good sport and coming and chatting with me. So it wasn't painful at all, was it? And I'm sorry I'm not going to turn up at your house with a chocolate cake in a moment. So sorry.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Okie dokie. So, here we go, trying to come back to my screen. So now we've kind of looked at the brain acronym, and we've looked at this fantastic way of making decisions and having this amazing tool to turn decisions from being just choices into informed choices. And so now you know that, now you have that acronym, you have that process available to you. Are you feeling a bit more ready for birth? I'm hoping that you're coming up one or maybe half or one up the scale from where you were at the beginning. So let's move on to the second mistake then, out of the 3 that we're going to be looking at. So the second mistake that parents can make is that you don't actually know what you need to learn, because you don't know what you don't know. And being pregnant is overwhelming enough physically and emotionally as it is. And doing research about what you need to learn is at best exhausting, and at worst kind of terrifying, because you just, you know, where do you even start if you don't know what you don't know? But you see, the thing is, it's okay, it's not your fault, because you've never given birth before. So how would you know what to do or what you need to do? And in fact, you know, we don't live with our sisters and our aunties, and we don't experience birth in close proximity. So why would you know what things would be useful? And to be perfectly honest, if I had £1 for every time someone said to me, "Oh, I wish I had found you, Ellen, I wish I'd found your course before I'd had my baby, as it would have been so different," I could basically retire to the Bahamas, because nobody knows what they don't know. So I want to share with you a brilliant and simple way to get to grips with what you need to learn in order to feel 100% confident and completely ready for birth. And this is something I have created as a way to just kind of get a sense of what there is out there to learn when you're looking at birth preparation and you're looking at antenatal classes and that sort of thing. And once again, I'm going to just share my screen with you again so that you can read it at the same time and you're not just looking at my face the whole time. So let's go back to here. Ooh, we've come out of the slideshow. Hang on a second. Let's go back in. There you go. Oh, we've done that. Oh, we've done that, thank you. Okay, so we are going to look at the ABCDEs of labour. And you probably notice about me that I quite like my ABCs, brains, my little acronyms, my little learning tools, because I think they're really useful ways to help you remember stuff. So I'm a teacher, what can I say? So without further ado, let's start with A. A stands for anatomy and physiology. And anatomy is the different parts of the body, and physiology is the way that they move and interact with each other. So in terms of pregnancy and birth and labour, the anatomy would be things like the pelvis and the uterus and the baby. Let's not forget the baby. And the physiology is the process of pregnancy, actually, and labour and birth. So it's a process they go through. And for me, it's really important to understand what's happening in your body. And the anatomy and physiology for me underpins all other knowledge that you will learn at all in any antenatal class. It's the foundation, if you like, of everything else, because everything else will relate back to the anatomy and physiology. So when we have a good grounding and understanding of what's happening in the body and the kind of biology and the mechanics of what's going on, everything else makes more sense. And this goes for yourself if you're the person having a baby, but also as a birth partner as well. When you understand fully what's going on, it really helps you to kind of just feel a lot more engaged in what's going on and kind of that you know what to expect. So then we come to B, which stands for benefit the body. And this is all about understanding not only how the body works, because it's all very well knowing how the body works, but if you don't really know what to do to help it, then it's not particularly useful knowledge. So it's all about understanding all of the different ways that we can help the process of labour and make it work as efficiently and as safely and in the least painful way. But also we need to understand some of the things that we might be doing that can hinder the process of labour. And in fact, that's a big little hint of something that's going to be coming along in a little moment. We need to know how to stop hindering labour just as much as we need to know how to help it. So these two things, the anatomy and physiology and how to benefit the body, kind of are linked very closely together. And you can't really separate them without understanding the other one. Then we come to C, which stands for cope with contractions. And this is a very broad part of the antenatal process, and there's lots of things that come under this category of cope with contractions. So hypnobirthing, for example, is a course that many people are interested in, and hypnobirthing is a method of coping with contractions, and it's all about understanding the different kinds of tools and techniques and methods and things that you can use to help you cope with labour and birth one contraction at a time. So it's about learning how to cope with sensations of labour. But also, while you can learn individual methods, I think it's really important to understand the principle behind all of those methods. And I call this the labour triangle of focus. Again, this is something that I have coined, because all of the different ways of coping with contractions fall broadly into 3 areas, the 3 points of the triangle, if you like. And you can combine 1 or 2 or 3 points of the triangle and create and craft something that works for you, because I don't believe that one thing works for every single person. I don't think one size fits all. I don't think one method is perfect for everybody. I think everybody is different and unique, and we all have different things that resonate with us. For some people it might be breathing, for other people it might be moving, and for other people it might be having a positive mindset or something. I don't know, there's different ways. And so when you understand the principles behind what's going on, actually we find that we can craft something that works uniquely for us, and really understand fully how we can get through labour and birth. Then we come to D, which stands for don't forget the birth partner. And this is all about understanding how to be a supportive birth partner, which I think every birth partner wants to be as supportive as possible. But often we don't really understand exactly what that means. When we say, well, exactly what are you going to do? Well, I don't know, I'm just going to be supportive. And it's kind of not enough to know that you want to be supportive. It's quite useful to put in those details as well. So it's about understanding that the words and the actions that the birth partner have in the room on the day have an effect on the physiology of the mother and her labour and birth, and they have an impact on what is going on. So having a good understanding of the anatomy and how they have an impact is really, really important. And of course there are practical tools as well that a birth partner might want to learn, the ways that they can help in birth positions, for example, and other logistical things that we might want to cover off kind of come under all of this category as well. So this is a really integral part of any birth preparation journey. And if there's any birth partners in here tonight, hey, lovely to see you. Thanks for joining. This is for you just as much as anybody else. So then we come to E, which stands for enhance your emotions. And this is really about understanding how your mindset can play a really big role in labour, and how to achieve real, genuine positivity, not just empty positive phrases, but actually feeling really confident and really ready. And what's really interesting is that when you learn about the foundations of labour and anatomy and physiology and what's happening in the body, and when we understand as well all the ways that we can help it, and then when you layer on top of that all the different ways that we can cope with contractions, and then when your birth partner is feeling really confident that they know exactly what to do to be as supportive as possible. Basically, when you've learned the stuff of the anatomy, the benefit, the body, the cope with contractions, and the don't forget the birth partner, what emerges, if you like, is the icing on the cake. It's that your emotions change. You start to feel different, and you start to feel more positive, and you start to feel more calm and relaxed and empowered and in control and knowledgeable and at ease and confident. Basically, all of these words that might describe feeling 100% ready for birth. And those emotions rise to the top. And of course, there are extra things that you can do. There's tools, and there's exercises and things that we can do to really push the positivity upwards. But actually, when you learn all this other stuff, The positivity is an amazing side effect of a lot of that stuff. And I hear this so much in the courses that I make. Even from the first session, people are starting to feel more confident, even when they haven't even done more than a small part of the course, because they're realizing that even every single little piece of knowledge that you learn is going to help you feel more confident. So let's come back to me, and I want to just reflect on how we've eliminated now this mistake of not really knowing what you need to know. Are you feeling a bit more ready? We've learned quite a lot in the last sort of half an hour about the BRAIN acronym and the labour ABCDEs. All of that information will come to you in a link, so that you don't have to remember it, you don't have to write it down. It just will serve as a reminder of the things that you might want to look for next. So I get great feedback from partners actually about my courses and about my classes. I hope you feel included, because I understand that birth partners are a really crucial part of the process, and it's quite difficult sometimes to feel like really engaged in what's going on, because you don't have like a rapidly expanding belly with the parasite in it. I totally get it. It's quite difficult sometimes to kind of feel connected, and actually when you really start to get in with the mechanics and understand what's going on, and you start to realize your place in all of that, it can really make a difference of how you feel as a birth partner. So let's move on now to the third mistake that we find that parents can make. And this is that many people are doing the single worst possible thing in labour. That's making their labour harder, longer, and more painful. Can you hazard a guess as to what that might be? So if you have a clue as to what the worst possible thing you can do in labour is, drop it in the chat. I'm going to tell you a few more things and we'll come back and see what ideas you come up with. So what do you think is the single worst possible thing that you can do in labour and birth that makes your labour harder, longer, and more painful? Unfortunately, for most people, like, your education is TV and movies. And the thing is, they're quite possibly the worst antenatal education ever. And it's widely spreading a huge amount of misinformation about what we should be doing in labour and birth, actually. And most people think that your labour starts by your waters breaking dramatically everywhere, maybe in a shopping mall or somewhere, big public place. Gosh. And followed by immediate agonizing contractions. Oh God, labour's done, the baby's coming. Then you go straight to hospital. Immediately you're straight to hospital, you climb into bed, lie down with your legs out and scream the house down until the midwife says, you can push now, it's time to push. And then the baby's born. And actually, it's just no. It's just wrong on so many levels. I can't even cover them all. And I'm not going to, I don't have time to cover it all. So let's hone in on one key detail, because we've only got a short amount of time left. So the single worst thing that you can do, let's have a look to see if any of you have come up with it. So Anna suggested laying on your back from the start. Stacey is saying panic, be scared, stress. I think, Stacey, you're right. Panicking is really not helpful ever, except maybe, you know, if you're being chased by zombies, then probably it's good. Noelle has said not moving about. Teresa said not listening to your body enough, what it needs and what is comfortable. So all of those things are really, really valuable. But in fact, the prize is going to go to Anna, who has said laying on your back. And I'm even just going to delete the bit from the start, just lying on your back. So the single worst thing that you can do in your labour and birth that makes it harder and more painful and longer is to lie on your back. And the thing is, it's all very well me telling you this stuff. Oh, you know, I went to this class and someone told me whatever. That's just going to go straight out of your head. I need to show you why, because what's really important to me is not necessarily that things are or how they are, but why. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a little demonstration now of the first two of those labour A, B, C, D, E's. So we're going to have a look at an A, the anatomy and physiology, and we're going to meet baby Nelly here and the pelvis. Oops. And we're going to be seeing how this part of labour works. And then we're going to be having a look at why lying on your back is really, really unhelpful. So in order to do this, I'm just going to get up and step away from my screen a little bit. Move my chair out of the way. Okay, let's just shift my camera slightly. So, okay, so let's have a look at first at the anatomy and physiology. So this is a plastic model of a pelvis. And this is baby Nelly. You may recognise her from the picture. She's quite cute. She's a doll. She's not a real one. So let's have a look at a bit of anatomy and physiology. So let's discover the pelvis and how the baby is going to move down through the pelvis during labour. So basically, unless you have a cesarean, your baby has to travel down through this bone structure in order to be born. Like there's no two ways about it. Unless you have surgery, your baby's got to come down through here. So let's have a quick look at how that's going to work. So first of all, we're going to start with the baby in the head down position. So at the beginning of your labour, your baby should be head down in your pelvis. And there are variations on the starting position for babies. And I'm not going to get into that now. I'm not going to talk about breech and other presentations. I don't have time right now, but I am going to talk, we're just going to assume that this is the optimum position. This is the position we kind of, that will allow labour to progress as easily as possible from a physiological point of view. So hopefully your baby will be facing down and will also be facing towards your right hand side at the beginning of your labour and birth. And then your labour will actually start quite gently, probably won't start with waters breaking, it's not that common. And you'll probably find that you may not even realise you're in labour to start with. They'll feel quite gentle, and then the contractions will begin to escalate. They'll begin to increase in intensity, increase in duration, and increase in frequency, going through that early stage of labour. And your baby is going to start to turn, and it's going to start to turn in a clockwise direction. So it's going to be turning, 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 turning inside of the pelvis. And then you will find that your labour becomes much more well established. There's going to be a real pattern of contractions. You might go to the hospital. You definitely are finding that contractions are taking up all of your attention by now. By this point, you might even be thinking about a bit of gas and air. And all this time, your baby is continuing this turn slowly, slowly in a clockwise direction. And then in another part of the body, in another part of the anatomy, in the cervix, and I'm going to represent the cervix with my fist here. This baby's head is pressing on the cervix, and it's thinning and effacing, and it's opening, it's dilating around the baby's head. And it needs to get to a particular size of opening, particular measurement before the baby come out. Does anybody know what that magic number of dilation is that we're aiming for? If you don't, dump it in the chat. So the cervix is opening, the contractions are really ramping up and really ramping up. The baby is continuing its turn until eventually two things are going to happen. One is that the baby is going to complete a turn of 90 degrees. So it started facing sideways and it's going to turn around to face the back. So it's going to do a quarter of a circle. And the second thing is that the cervix is going to become fully dilated. And I'm just having a look to see who's, so Anna, Teresa, Stacey, all of you bang on 10 centimetres of dilation. In actual fact, 10 centimetres dilated from a physiological point of view is not very accurate, but I don't have time to get into that now. Let's say for the purpose of this argument, it's 10 centimetres. So two things happen in labour. The baby completes its quarter turn and the cervix is fully dilated to 10 centimetres. The baby's head drops right down into the bottom of the pelvis and presses on the pelvic floor muscles, which I'm representing with my hand here. And it triggers the body to go into the second stage of labor, where the body will spontaneously push the baby out. And that's what starts happening now. Now, it's worth mentioning at this point that while the baby's head has cleared the bones at the bottom of the pelvis here, we can't see the head yet because it's only cleared the bones, it hasn't cleared the soft tissue. So that's what happens in the second stage of labor. It comes down through the birth canal, down through the vagina. It meets the vulva, the perineum, that parts around the baby's head, and the baby's head is born facing backwards. And then this is where it starts getting really bonkers. If you hadn't thought that was already bonkers enough, very quickly in the next few moments, certainly the next contraction, the baby will actually turn back through that 90 degrees, right back to its starting position very quickly. And then the rest of the body will be born quite quickly, and you get to meet your baby. It's a girl. So this process is designed to be successful. It's designed to work really well. I mean, it's complex, but nevertheless, it's quite an incredible process. So I've just seen G Thurbon said, I think I need to retract my earlier score 3. Does that mean you're going up or down? I'm not quite sure. I hope that hasn't made you feel worse. I think it's really interesting. And we've just seen a very quick and dirty version of what happens in the pelvis. Actually, in my course, for example, we talk about how the baby goes down the pelvis for about half an hour, and we really examine why it's happening in that way, and how that jigsaw puzzle works. That's just kind of like what we've just seen is kind of like an overview, really. So it's all very well knowing how the baby comes down through the pelvis. It's designed for success. But in actual fact, what difference does it make knowing this, and what difference does it make lying on your back or not lying on your back? So what we want to do now is we've had a look at that A, the anatomy and physiology. Now we're going to have a look at the B, the benefit of the body, because you have to take both of them together. So in order to understand how being in an upright position and not lying on your back is going to benefit the way that the baby is moving down through the pelvis, in order to do that, we need to be able to see what's happening in both of those situations. So we're going to start by looking at what's happening in the pelvis when you're lying down on your back. And in order to do that, we need to, I need to make a bit of space, and I need to move the camera down. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to be using this ball to help me demonstrate this, because it's just a bit easier to show you. Plus I like my props. My classes are always full of things like balls, and I've got a tuba grip here that I often use for demonstration purposes. When you're like, what on earth does she use that for? Anyway, so you can roughly see that this ball is about analogous to the size of the baby's head. It's not exact, but it'll do for the purposes of demonstration. So let's just move this down. Action-packed classes. It's like a GoPro, isn't it? Antenatal class with GoPro. In fact, I'm going to just come down here, and so we can see a bit better. Okay, so what is happening when we're lying down? So if you can imagine that this is the position that a woman is in when she's lying down in labour. And when she's in this position, her pelvis, that we've just seen, is in this position. I'm just going to turn this around a little bit so you can see. And we've got the top of the pelvis here, and the baby has to come out the bottom. So we've got a bit of the spine here. And we're going to just take the ball and put it in the pelvis. So this is what's happening when the mother is lying down. Now you can see immediately I don't have to hold the ball. Okay, so if I turn the pelvis around a little bit, we can see that these bones here, this is the pubic arch, and actually if you can just see along the bottom here, if I point it out, is the tailbone here, the coccyx, and all of these points are holding the head in place. And I forgot to say, this is what we saw before. The baby's coming in this way round, it's got to turn in that direction, quarter of a turn, and then it comes out this way. So the head at the beginning starts here. I don't even need to hold it. And these bones here are causing resistance to the path of the ball. So if you remember, the head in the first stage of labour has to twist. So in order to twist the ball, it's got to twist against these bones. Again, it's not conducive to helping that happen. And then when the cervix is fully dilated and we want to have the contractions pushing the baby's head, my hand here is representing contractions, we can see that every contraction, there's resistance from the pelvis, and I can't actually get it through. There you go. And eventually the ball will clear the bones of the bottom of the pelvis, and then it's ready to move. But now, while the head has cleared, actually the rest of the body has now got to go through this bit. And the thing is, when the head is in this position, when you're lying on your back, these bones here are held in such a way that the opening is the smallest possible opening it can be. It's holding it in the closed position, essentially. Now, we know that you can give birth lying on your back, and people do, but it's quite a new idea. It's only been happening for the last 150 or so years commonly, and before that nobody lay on their back at all. But that's another story as to why that's happening. So now let's have a look and see what happens when we get up off our back and what difference that makes. So in order to do that, I'm just going to move my camera back up again. So what we just saw was here we go, the pelvis and the ball in this position. So this is the lying down position. We can see the ball is being held in place. As soon as we get up off our back during labour, the pelvis turns its position into this position, and the natural positioning of the sacrum, which is this bone here, the bottom of the spine, is this. Can you see how it opened out there? And when it's lying down, it's pushed in. And as soon as you get up off your back, we're creating loads more space. And in fact, you can see clearly, I can put my hand around, there's loads more space, because the pelvis, the sacrum's moving out of the way. This bone here, the coccyx, the tailbone's also moving out of the way. And actually these bones here that you can see also widen. It's quite subtle. Let me see if I can show you. Can you see how those ones are able to widen as well? So all of this space in the bottom of the pelvis can open massively, and depending on what position you adopt in labour and birth, you can create up to 33% more space in your pelvis to help your baby come down. 33%, that's a third. It's a huge amount more space just from getting up off your back. Some may only give you 20, you know, I'm going to take the extra 20%. Some may only give you 10%, but still any extra space is going to make your birth much, much easier. So it's not just useful to know that actually it's good to not be on your back in labour. We also need to know why, and hopefully that shows you really clearly exactly why it's beneficial to be upright during labour and birth. And now I think that we've pretty much covered off that being one of the biggest mistakes that people make in thinking that's how you are supposed to birth a baby. And it is all TV's fault. It's EastEnders, one every minute. Please don't watch one every minute. Even though it's a reality TV show, they never show the realistic stuff. So now we know how to avoid that. Now we know to get up off our back during labour and be in an upright position, and we know how the baby is going to move and how that's going to help the baby move. And does that make you feel a bit more ready for birth? I hope so. And so in this short time that we have spent together, I hope that you feel now that you know how to use your brain to use ask yourself about the benefits, risks, alternatives, implications, nothing, in order to help you turn choices into informed choices. And I hope that you know exactly what you need to learn and what you don't know. The labour ABCDEs gives you a really good framework for just knowing all the different things there are out there and understanding what you may feel like you want to fill in the gaps of that. And also, I hope that you feel that you now know the single best, most important thing that you can do in labour to help your baby move down the pelvis as best it can. And hopefully all of those things you are feeling. So let me also ask you this: has this been a valuable 60 minutes for you? I hope so. I hope the answer is yes. Can you see how learning this stuff just in 60 short minutes is helping you feel more ready for birth? I hope the answer is yes. Oops, that's my alarm. Tell me to put my children to bed. Just turn that off. Snooze. At start, I asked you on a scale of 1 to 10, how ready for birth do you feel? And my question now is, how many points up the scale have you come? Drop it in the chat. Let me know. Is it +1? Is it +2? Is it minus? Gosh, I hope not. I've only very rarely had people who've gone down, and they've always just come to my full class and gone right up to a 10. So that's good. So let me know, how much more ready for birth do you feel having done this session? And are you excited to go forwards and do more and get up to 10? I'm interested to hear, you know, what your scores are. So they're coming through. So G Thurbon said yes. I hope that means you're saying yes, I feel more ready for birth. Noelle saying yes, brilliant. +2, oh, fantastic. EB Bolton saying yes, thank you so much. +2 now, fantastic. Anna's +1, great. Teresa saying thank you, I definitely feel more confident. +2, thank you. What would the optimum position be, would you say? Teresa, I'm going to come back to that question. Jay and Jai, I hope I've said that correctly. Thank you, I'd say 6 now, brilliant. I hope that's gone up. Amy saying +2, thank you. Imackens +2, brilliant. Emma saying I'd say up by 2, brilliant. Thank you. Let's hope it's just a tennis ball in my tummy. Yeah, but if you think about it, you know, people think, oh, I've got this watermelon. You haven't, because a baby's head is really not much bigger than a tennis ball. It's really not as big as you think. Honestly, you'll be fine. It's JJ, so I apologise for getting that wrong. And if I ever say your name incorrectly, please do tell me, because I hate it when people get my name wrong, and it's really important to me to get it right. Mamps says, hi, so sorry, I ended up missing quite a lot because I had a family member just turn up when we started. Don't worry, Mamps. I've recorded this session and I'll make that available to you. If you, you'll get an email from me after the session, and just hit reply and say, oh, can you send me the replay, and I'll send you a link. So don't worry about it. I always record stuff. People always want to watch the replay. Don't worry at all. Brilliant. I'm so happy that that has been really, really helpful. So before you go, I just want to let me tell you how I can help you achieve a 10 on this scale. And then we'll be finishing up the session with a Q&A. And so if you have any questions about anything that we've done in the class, or anything that's going on for you that's kind of just like burning a hole, please feel free to drop it in the chat and I'll answer as many as I can you know, as quickly as I can. But I just want to spend a couple of moments just telling you a little bit about my course, about my monthly live online courses. And basically, I just want to share that with you just for a moment. And let me just show you my screen once again. So, a little reminder here, the most important thing that you can do to help your baby move through the pelvis in labour is stay in an upright position. Beep, beep, don't forget. So I do run a 4-week live online course. It's via Zoom in this format. So it's completely live. This is my May cohort. You can see me there. My hair's grown a bit since then. You can see we're all wearing sun tops, aren't we? Gosh, we're in our winter jumpers now. So during this 4-week course, in the first week, we learn all about the anatomy and physiology and how to benefit the body. So we look at the guide to the baby and the pelvis, and we also look at the guide to the uterus and how they work. In the second week, we look at an A and the B and the C of the labour A, B, C, D, E. So we look at the anatomy and the physiology of the hormones. So we look at the hormones, and we look more generally at how to benefit the body. So we look at 31 different ways to benefit the body. 31, that's quite a lot of ways that we can help the body in labour. We also look at the good birth environment, what that is, what that means, and how we can control it. And we also, at the end of that session, start looking at coping with contractions by looking at what to expect in labour from an experiential point of view. So earlier on I kind of gave a description of what we think birth is like to start off with, and actually what we talk about in great detail is what it's actually like, what it's actually you can expect at the beginning, the middle and the end of labour, and all of those bits in between. The third session is all about how to cope with contractions. It's a really, really broad area, and we look at the labour triangle of focus and understand the 3 key principles, but it's also quite a practical workshop, and we do things all together. We have our balls pumped up, we have mats, we do birth positions, we do breathing exercises. We're actually doing it, because it's no good me just giving you a piece of paper saying, oh, you might want to try this position in labour. That's no good. You need to actually sit on the ball and try it, or whatever it is, and see if it feels good for you, because not everything works for everybody, and you need to have a bit of experience in it before you know whether that's going to be right for your labour. So it's quite interactive, and it's very much about participating in what's going on. It's a workshop, not a lesson. The 4th week, we finish off by looking at don't forget the birth partner and enhance your emotions. And we go through a checklist of how to be a completely awesome birth partner. And also by the end of the session as well, we do some exercises and consolidation, and make sure that everyone is feeling 100% confident and completely ready. So it's a really comprehensive course and covers every single aspect of the labour ABCDEs that I described earlier. The cost of the course is £99 for the 4 weeks. It's around 10 to 12 hours of content, depending on how many hours at the end we get into discussion and Q&A. But because you have come and attended this taster session today and given me an hour of your time, you have qualified to access the course for £25 off the £75. And on top of that, if you want to sign up before my next course, which starts tomorrow, so it's the last minute, my October course starts on tomorrow, Wednesday, the 7th of October. The course price is just £49 for the next 24 hours, and you can book onto any course for that, although my December and my January course are bizarrely completely sold out at this point. So we're looking at October and November, and then next one will be February. And stay tuned to hear how you can access that price. So the bonus of all of this stuff is not just the course, it's not just the live course, but you get a 41-page manual, which means you don't have to write anything down, and all the important information is already provided for you. You also have completely free access to my self-guided online course, Breathing Techniques for Labour and Birth, which is a standalone course, which is worth £19.99. And if you're just interested in just the breathing techniques, if you're looking for a refresher or something, then you can purchase that completely separately if you want, if you don't want to come to the course. There's also included a birth preferences masterclass, where we look at how we're going to go about writing birth preferences and what that looks like. You also have access to my VIP Facebook group, which is just for course attendees. We have weekly live Q&A sessions, lots of extra content posted there, and of course the benefit of connecting with other course attendees, talking about with the other people in the group, but also other groups as well. So people who might be a bit further down the process than you, they've had their baby perhaps and might be able to offer a bit of advice and solidarity within the group. And finally, I mentioned earlier that I'm in the process of creating a self-guided pre-recorded version of my course. Now, at the moment, only the very, very first part of the first module is published, and it's available to buy for £4.99. But actually, if you come to the live course, you get full access to the self-guided course, and all of the bits as it gets all the new bits get published. So the first 2 modules should be complete. The anatomy and physiology and the benefit of the body should be complete by the end of next week. That's the target I've set myself. And by Christmas, the whole thing will be completed. And also the first 3 people who sign up after this session get an extra little bonus. You actually will get a free copy of my Helping Birth book as an ebook. So I'll send that to you as a PDF, or if you prefer a Mobi file, I can send that to you as well. So the first 3 people who sign up after this session will qualify for that extra bonus as well. But that £49 is only valid for now, for the next 24 hours, up until the next start date of my course, which is tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. So to sign up to the course, just go to tiny.cc/uprightbirth and use the code birth upright. Now, I'm not going to email you this code, and I'm not going to send it out to anybody, because there's people who sign up for this course and for this class and they don't attend, and I don't want them to have access to this discount because you've actually come and you've enjoyed the class. So you may want to write this down or take a screenshot or take a camera. The code is birth upright. And when you add that coupon code, when you sign up at TinyCC Upright Birth, then it will give you the £50 off. So that's birth upright is the code. All of the sessions are recorded, as I said, and replays are available. And I also offer a guarantee that if after the first week of the course you have not enjoyed it and aren't already starting to feel more confident and more ready for birth, then you can have your money back, no questions asked. And I've never ever had to return anybody's money because everybody has given me great feedback, even from the very first session. So just to reminder again, that URL, tiny.cc/uprightbirth, and use the code birth upright in order to get your £50 off, 50% off the course. So I'm really looking for people who think that doing an antenatal course is a good idea, who find the biology and mechanics of the body and birth useful and interesting. And I'm looking for people who want to understand why things work as well as how. I want people who want to learn as much as possible about birth in order to give yourself the best chance to have a completely awesome birth. And I'm looking for people who are ready to smash the misinformation that's being fed to you by TV and instead fill your brain with the skills and the knowledge that you need to feel 100% confident and completely ready for birth. So that's my guarantee to you. There's that link again one more time. And we're going to do a Q&A now. We're going to come to our question and answer. So if anybody has any questions about anything that we've covered in the course today, the BRAIN acronym, benefits, risk, alternatives, implications, nothing, the labour ABCDs, anatomy and physiology, benefit the body, coping with contractions, don't forget the birth partner, enhance your emotions, or anything about being upright in birth, or anything else that's going on for you in your pregnancy. If there's any questions that you've just got burning and you don't have anybody any to ask, please drop them in the chat. Ask me now. Use me. I'm here, and I'm looking forward to answering questions. I know that Teresa's already asked one, and I'm going to answer that one first. And I'm also going to have a quick look through the chat just to check I haven't missed anything. And thank you so much everybody for coming this evening. It's really appreciated. I really hope this has been of high value to you, and I know that if you want, then there's more available to you. So Teresa, let me come to your questions. So where are we? Let me just searching through the chat. Okay, what would the optimum position be, would you say? Now, this is a great question. And also, Teresa, it's quite a difficult question to answer fully, but also concisely. So the thing is, generally speaking, all of the positions that are in an upright position will be more beneficial than laying down. Different ones will afford you different levels of opening in your pelvis. However, labour's complex, right? And it's not just about your position. There's other factors at play. And a lot of it's about being in a position that feels intuitively right to you. So I could say to you, oh yes, the best position physiologically is like X. But if that's a position that doesn't really feel right for you or doesn't work for you, then you're just going to be stressing in your labour because you're like, but I can't get into that position, it feels horrible, my knee hurts or whatever, and that stress and that discomfort is going to have an impact on your labour. So it's not easy to say it's this one. From a physiological point of view, there are certain positions that give you more opening in the pelvis than others, but it can never be taken on its own. It needs to be taken in a broader context. And there's other factors at play. So I think being intuitive and comfortable is really important as well. So that was a bit of a, I hope you feel like I've answered your question there, Teresa. And it was a bit of a sidestep because it's not a simple question to answer. However, what I would say is in my course, when we look at coping with contractions in week 3, we do talk in detail about lots of different types of positions, when you might want to try them out in labour, ones that are better for early labour, ones that are better for later labour, and the ones that, and kind of looking at the ones that give you that maximum space. That's something that we do go into during the course. So I'm just going to have a quick back through the chat and just make sure I haven't missed anything. Angela Jordan said she couldn't make it. I'm just going to write her name on my thing because she said she couldn't hear me, so I must make sure I send her the replay. Okay, let's see. Questions. Okay, Emma's talking about a tennis ball. Okay, Mamps, I'm going to send you the link too. Okay, Christina, is it true you need to relax as much as possible in the first stage of labour? Example, sitting or laying in bed or having a bath, and only be active and move around in the second stage of labour? So this is a really great question, Christina, brilliant. So what I would say is, this is a complex question, but I'm going to take it in different sections. So it is important to relax as much as possible in labour and birth, because when you're tense, it's harder for your uterus to work, and it's harder for all of the systems in your body to work. And the thing is, labour is a reflex, right? And your uterus is doing the work, and going like this, like that, doesn't help you have your baby. And so being relaxed and being soft really does help your body work as best as it can. However, if you're lying on your back in the first stage of labour, we've seen how it is really, really detrimental to the physiological process. So it's about being relaxed, but not being like reclined, essentially. So, I mean, having a bath, slightly different, because the water makes you a bit buoyant, so it wouldn't be pressing down quite as much, but there's a lot of factors at play in being upright. It's not just about that effect on the pelvis. There's lots of other things going on as well. And the thing is, I think that what we think is, it's about the naming of labour, right? So the first part of labour, we call it like latent part of labour, and then we call it active labour. You're in active labour, and when we hit active, you immediately think, oh, that's the bit I must be active in. But in fact, that active means in labour just that it's got going, that it's established. And in fact, the idea of being active in birth is, I think, it's not that you have to be moving around the whole time, and it's not that you have to be like pounding the stairs or whatever, but it's finding a balance and about being able to move and be free and be intuitive and not be lying on your back. And it's perfectly possible to be very relaxed in many positions that are not lying on your back. So for example, a birth ball, right, is a fantastic tool in helping you to achieve comfort in your labour and birth, because you know, you can kind of like flop over it, but you're in an upright position. So actually there are lots of ways that you can be relaxed, and I think it's important not to think that you must lie down. In fact, somebody asked me a few weeks ago, you know, at what point do I get up off my back? Ideally, you would never lie down on your back at all in your whole of labour, from a physiological point of view. So as soon as you lie down, you're losing all of the benefits. So there was lots of parts of your question, and I'm giving you a long-winded answer. I hope this is answering your question. I'm just double checking your question to see if I've only been able to move around the second stage. So yeah, and in fact, what you might find is in the second stage of labour, that's the bit where your baby is actually coming out, right? The pushing bit, your body is pushing your baby out. You probably find that you won't be moving around that much because there's a lot of pushing, and there's a baby coming out your vagina. So in a way, you'll probably find that you're you know, not moving around the room at that point. And in the early part of labour, in the first stage of labour, in the very early bit and the active bit, you probably find that you're much more mobile and using a lot more of the space. That's not to say that you should lie down in the second part, but just this idea of being active, it's just about doing what feels right. So that was long-winded, Christina. I hope I've answered your question there. Please let me know. Okay, Stacey is saying, what are the benefits, risks of water birth? Okay, so Stacey, this is a great question. It's also a really massive question and not one I can properly do justice here. Some people have written like whole books on water birth. In fact, the person I trained with, Janet Velasquez, has written a book on water birth. So you may want to look that up because it's really an interesting and inspiring read. But just the bare bones of it are the reason why we would have a water birth, the benefit, if you like, of having a water birth, is that there's two reasons. One, the main reason is that it helps us reduce, it's like a pain relief option. So many people report that being in water means that they find their contractions, the sensations of their labour much more manageable, they feel much more relaxed and much more able to cope and kind of get in the zone of labour. So many people love that the way that water helps them feel something, and it means that they don't have to rely on pain relief choices because they feel really comfortable in the pool. There is another effect of being in a pool, and that is that it helps to stimulate some of the hormones that are good for labour and birth. But for most people, it's about the comfort factor. The risks of having a water birth is more about whether or not you enjoy being in the pool. There's certain things that are not available to you if you are in the pool, and also there's certain situations which mean that you would be unable to get into a pool. So for example, if you're having an induction of labour, you are not going to be able to have a water birth because you're going to be strapped up to an IV drip and you're going to have monitoring on you, and it's just not going to be an option for you. It's not going to be a choice for you. So immediately, as soon as you have an induction, a water birth is going to be off the cards. At the moment, the actual risks in the water birth are relatively low. It's a really fantastic place to have a baby. Just know that some people don't like it. I actually hated being in water and had my wonderful water pool set up in my front room on my first labour, and I couldn't get in for ages and ages, so my labour just lasted forever and didn't go anywhere. Finally I was allowed in, and I hated it. I hated the sense of being buoyant, and actually I discovered with hindsight later when I did my antenatal teacher training that I realised I needed to feel grounded. So for me it wasn't the greatest thing, but there's loads and loads of benefits of being of a water birth and not really that many risks. But it's just good to understand the implications of a water birth, or whether a water birth or not having access to a water birth is an implication of another choice that you might make. So I hope that's answered your question, Stacey. It's a really big topic, and I hope to do a masterclass on water birth at some point. But at the moment, I'm really focusing on my pre-recorded course because it's really big and I just want to get it right. And so that's going to come next year. Next year is when I'm kind of like really building out my content, fleshing out. So Teresa said, would I still, or should I still sign up for hypnotherapy, or do you cover this on your course? Okay, so really great question. So my course, I'm an independent teacher. So what that means is I can decide what I do in my course. A lot of people say to me, like, what's the difference between like what you do in NCT and what you do in hypnobirthing? So hypnotherapy is basically hypnobirthing. It's all kind of much the same thing. So hypnotherapy for birth is it's a method of coping with contractions. Yeah, it's one of those parts of the C. And it focuses on relaxation and self-hypnosis techniques in order to stay really relaxed in labour and birth. And it often includes some breathing exercises as well, and quite a lot of sort of like mindset stuff like affirmations and visualizations. And that is really great. A lot of people find it really fantastic. I personally did hypnobirthing, and I found that I needed more. I'm a very practical person. I'm quite a mechanical, biological person. I needed to know about all that other stuff. So that's why my course, I cover like the anatomy, physiology, and the benefits of the body, because a lot of the hypnotherapy courses don't go into very much detail, if any. And also I needed to know lots of different ways of coping with contractions, because for my first labour, I did a hypnobirthing course and I kind of went all relaxed, and it was beautiful for the first day. And then my labour lasted 4 days. Well, it was 3.5 days to be fair, 3.5 days of full on labour. And so like there's only so much breathing technique can get you through that and relaxing. I didn't know what to do with my body. I needed to move. I had all this energy. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what position to be in. I didn't know what to do for that 3 days. I was going out of my head. And I needed a physical thing. I need tangible things to do. And so I found personally that's what I needed. And so that's why I teach a wide variety of things. And I don't cover hypnotherapy because I think many other people do it. But if you did do a hypnobirthing course, you might find that there was a little bit of crossover, but not really a huge, and you'd probably find that they complemented each other really well. And we talk about some of the principles behind that hypnobirthing draws upon. And we absolutely talk about relaxation and stress on the body and breathing techniques and all of those things that we'll cover, but it's not hypnobirthing. I hope that's answered your question, Teresa. Also, while I'm talking about it, for the NCT stuff, the NCT, and this is for UK people, because I don't think it's available outside the UK. So it stands for the National Childbirth Trust, and they are all about a very broad antenatal learning. And a lot of what they talk about is relating to your hospital experience, and they do talk a lot about pain relief choices and interventions. Now, I talk about that in my book. You can see it's on my shelf behind me, because I don't have time to cover that in my course. I think you can read that stuff in a book. That's why I wrote it. But they can quite often talk about like what cesarean might be like and things like that. But they also talk a lot about what life is like with a baby. So you might learn like how to change nappies and how to bath a baby, and expectations of like how much babies sleep or how much they cry. And there's also a breastfeeding component. So what you might cover in like one of the 6 or 7 NCT sessions, which is about labour and birth, I cover every part of my course is about getting through labour and birth. And the reason why I do this is because I don't think any other courses equip you for getting through labour and birth. And they talk about babies and they talk about the stuff, but very few places actually teach you what's going on in your labour and birth and how to get through it one contraction at a time, what to actually do in labour. And so I focus very specifically on that, very 100%. So I hope that kind of explains how I sit in comparison to other people, because I am you probably noticed, I'm a real anatomy geek, and I feel that the body is really key, and the biology and the mechanics is really integral to all those other things. And I like to look at the principles about what we're learning, not just saying, oh, this is my method, this is the birth method, do this and you'll cope. I'm like, no, I don't have a method, because what works for me isn't going to work for you. And it's about what I like to teach is giving you a really good understanding of what's going on and why. And also then when we look at coping with contractions, it's like, I like to think of it, it's like I'm giving you a massive carrier bag full of ingredients, like on MasterChef, right? And I'm not saying, here's a recipe for my amazing cake. I'm saying, here's some ingredients, go away and find the recipe that works for you. Here are the tools for you to take the things that resonate with you and leave the things that don't. And then if something doesn't work for you in labour, if something, like for me, I had a plan to be in a particular position, and then I hated being in that position. I had a plan to go in the pool and I hated being in the pool. What do you do if you come to labour and that method doesn't work for you? So the more that you can learn, the better, basically. That was extremely long-winded as well. Sorry, I do get very, very passionate about this stuff. So Teresa says, perfect, thanks, I've signed up. Oh, brilliant. Okay, wonderful. So, oh my goodness, it is nearly 9 o'clock. I'm really happy to take any more questions if you have any. I'm pretty sure I've got through, I think I've got through everything. Mamps, please send me an email and remind me to send you the replay. Anyone else, if you have any more questions, I'm just having a quick look through. I'm pretty sure I've got everything. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me. My email is eleanor@birthsang.co.uk. If you want to sign up to the course, remember that the sign up link is tiny.cc/uprightbirth. You can also find the link via my website. It's exactly, or my Facebook page. It's the same place that you booked onto this course, this taster class. And if you use the code BIRTHUPRIGHT before tomorrow evening, which is when my October course starts, you can enjoy the course for £49, and after that it will be £75. So yeah, I hope that some of you are going to join me. We're nearly full for October, which is really excited. I have limited spaces because it's just impossible to have like 100 people on the chats. These classes can have anything up to 100 people on them, so it's quite a small session tonight. We started out with about 25 and now we're down to about 11. So if you have any more questions, please feel free to contact me through Facebook, through my email. I've got a very open Facebook group, Birthsang Online Antenatal and Postnatal Support Group. Anyone is available to join that, whether you sign up or not. And of course, if you do sign up for my course, you get access to the VIP group as well. Jay and JJ have said, thank you, we'll see you tomorrow too. Fantastic, can't wait to see you. EB Bolton Mohammed Mubin Patel has said, thanks so much, Eleanor, for your time, efforts, and providing us with all the information. Much appreciated, Tanima. Now, I'm really glad that you found it helpful. Whether you join into my sessions or not, I am putting this information out to you so that you can take all of this information into your labour and birth. If you want to come and join in the community, it would be wonderful to have you. If that's it for this evening, there's another alarm to say, no, really do put your children to bed. Yeah, if I do see you tomorrow, that's going to be amazing. And I'm going to sign off now. I do need to stop talking. I've been doing it for an hour and a half. I'm good at it though, aren't I? Honestly, thank you so much for joining me this evening. I will, if you need to catch the replay, I can send you that. And yeah, I look forward to seeing some of you very soon. And I'll just leave you with that screen there, tiny.cc/uprightbirth, and use the code BIRTHUPRIGHT. First 3 people were scored an ebook, but I think you've probably missed on that now. And I shall see you tomorrow. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining me, and have a brilliant rest of the week. Have an amazing birth, have an awesome birth, and hope to see you very soon. Take care, everyone. Bye, bye. See you. Oh, a couple of people, IMAC and one, see you tomorrow evening as well. Brilliant. Noelle, thank you so much. Thank you very much. See you later, everyone. Bye. I'm really going to turn it off now.